the 2004 DBQ, it always gives you the rubric on the front of the paper, and that you are going to get points, like you can see where the points are going to come from this rubric. So you get 1 point for making a claim that answers the question. You get 1 point for having contextualization or setting the stage around the question. You're going to get 1 point for using all the documents. You see where it says at least 6? I'm going to go all 7. Okay. We're going to analyze the evidence to use for your argument for 1 point. And we're going to do reasoning and sourcing for 1 point. We're going to get 1 point for evidence beyond the documents. And then this argument development is actually called complexity. It's a complex understanding of it. And you get 1 point. And so that is 7 points on the rubric. And you will always see the rubric in front of you to remind you what you have to do. So it's not something that you have to memorize. You'll always see it. So I'll do that pretty much every time that we do a DBQ. The question here says, using the document and your knowledge of world history, evaluate the responses to the spread of Buddhism in China starting in the 1st century CE. Okay, when we get a question like this where it says evaluate the responses, how can you respond to something? People.
Say that again?
How do you respond to something?
Just like anything?
Anything. Okay, so if there was a question asked you, you would answer it, right? Your response is an answer. So you can accept the question, right? You're going to answer it. So a response to something could be that you accept it. What could be the opposite response?
You decline it.
You reject it. So I never want you to have a group or something that is to answer a question where you would say it's neutral, right? So how else could you respond to somebody saying, do you like this? Do you want to do this? You either accept it, reject it, or? Okay, so not sure could be close to neutral. What else would you say?
Offer another option.
Offer another option?
You accept on a condition.
Ooh, accepting on a condition. So let's put those words into like what a historian might look at, accept on a condition kind of thing. And it might sound more like we tolerate it, right? Or we live with it. We don't either accept it or reject it, but we'll never say the word neutral. Does that make sense, you guys? So everyone right now is writing down these options, right? So tolerate, accept, or reject. So because we know this, and we know that these are the responses, and you're writing this down on the piece of paper, those are the responses that we could have, that those responses right there, these documents would probably fall into that. Does that make sense? Like we can say that we accept, tolerate, or reject based on just how we respond to anything. But I'll tell you that these documents are going to fall into one of these 3 categories. All right, let's go. Somebody tell me, let's start at Doc 1, and somebody tell me what Doc 1 says. Somebody read source. I want you to write the word emo. It still means the same thing it did 30 years ago. Dark, right? Like that it's emotional, that it's angsty. Sorrow, everything sucks. You know those people, right? All things cause sorrow. So, who wrote this document?
Someone feeling sorrow.
Who wrote this document? What do you got? Did Buddha sit down and write this?
No.
Okay, the voice of the document is Buddha, right? Like, this is the basic doctrine that he laid out. But who would have written this down for him?
A follower of Buddha.
A follower or disciple of Buddha, right? And so that we're going to write written by a follower of the Buddha. And that this is according to Buddhist tradition. So this is basic doctrine. And that he lays out 1, 2, 3, 4 noble truths, right? The fourth noble truth is the one of the way, right? If you follow the way, it leads to the stopping of sorrow. Remember nirvana and the oneness with the world spirit, so that your soul can rest. And so the way, in order to do that, you have to follow the Eightfold Path. We're going back to August now. And so, what does this last noble truth do for a person who's in sorrow?
Gives hope.
It gives hope, right? Because if everything sucks, boy, do we need something to look forward to. Alright, let's read Doc. Who's Z done? Okay, so scholar, so that means he's educated. Who's his audience? Who's he talking to?
Possible converts. Chinese citizens.
Alright, so I hear possible converts, Chinese people. Like, who specifically is he talking to? If he's a confidant to the aristocrats.
The rich people.
Oh, so rich people, so the nobility, right? His friends, this is nobility, right? And that he is talking to nobility. What's his basic message in this document? What do you got?
If you follow the Buddha, you will enter nirvana, which he thinks is a good thing.
Yep. If you follow the Buddha, you will reach nirvana. So, I have a question. Are these people he's a confidant to, so a friend to, the nobility, are they making good choices or bad choices? Right, in this era of sensual pleasures, right? That friends are making bad choices. So we want to write that down. What could Z done be? He could be Buddhist, I heard it. And so if he's Buddhist, he wants his friends who are suffering, who are making bad choices in this era of sensual pleasures, he wants them to find peace. Yes?
How do you how do you assume they're doing something bad from more sensual?
So, whosoever, so he's not saying you people, who I'm watching that are doing bad things. So whosoever, it might not be you, it might be your friend. He's not calling them out directly, but when he says that, he's addressing them in this era of sensual pleasure. You know, if you actually serve the Buddha, then you'd have peace. So the sensual pleasures is like his dig at them, like you're making bad choices. In a, I don't want to say politically correct way, because he's calling them out for making like sexy choices, right? Instead of like just bad decisions. Does that make sense? Okay. So we see this that, hey, I'm trying to give hope to a time of not peace. I mean, like, look at the time period. It's a time when steppe nomads are attacking. It's actually between the time of, it's called the Warring States period. It's between the Han Dynasty that falls in 220 CE and the Sui Dynasty that comes about in like 525 CE. So there's a period of time where there's not a stable government, and these people are like from a court, so they're a government like court. They might have known stability in the Han Dynasty, but it's over. They're being attacked. So he again is trying to give hope. So I'm going to just write gives hope. This is a very Confucian style. That question and answer is very Confucius in a way, because he's not directing it to anyone. And this is an anonymous scholar. So the fact that they use the word scholar means that they're trained up in Confucian ways. So this right here, right, is that they're trained up in Confucius classics. And that this Q&A is very Confucian style.
Confucius was born after Buddha?
No, before Buddha. And so, if Buddhism is the greatest and most venerable ways, why did it? So, here's a complaint, and then here's an answer. There's a complaint, and an answer. So, if we go, there's no known audience. However, we're going to assume it's written. Who would this be written to?
Chinese people.
Which kind of Chinese people?
Yeah, Confucian.
So Confucians who are doing what?
Maybe thinking about converting.
Or doubting.
Or doubting the Buddhist existence, right? So I'm going to say written to people challenging Buddhism.
So was the person who wrote the document, were they Confucius or Buddhists?
Well, he's trained up in the Confucius classics, but he knows a lot about Buddhist. So he could be.
Maybe he was a Confucian convert.
Could be. He could be. So this first set of questions is very much trying to unify. Because it's like, look, just because Confucius didn't mention him doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Buddhism doesn't exist, or that it's not, like, why are you doubting? Why is there suspicion? Why Why are you questioning? Just because Confucius didn't do it. So he knows what Confucius wrote. So he's very trained up, and we already know that because of the word scholar. This last part, right? He's saying it's Buddhism is not negative. It's just different. Right? It's basically justifying the existence of Buddhism. People, when you approach a document, we've got to use the document to answer the question. So, the way that I've described it, it's clearly anti-Buddhist, right? Clearly anti-Buddhist. And that if we look at this anti-Buddhist, who is speaking? Okay, Confucian scholar, so he's well trained.
A Tang official.
Okay, he's an advisor. And who is he speaking to? Who do you have?
I think the emperor.
The emperor, right? Because he talks directly to him. He says, Your Majesty, speaking to emperor. The audience is the emperor himself. And he says that this is potentially destabilizing to your empire. Right? Your authority. This right here is potentially destabilizing to your authority. So Buddhism is potentially destabilizing your authority. I mean, he calls it barbarian. It's not Chinese. That's the word when somebody hates something just because it's not like them. Specifically in China is xenophobic. Right? Barbarian. It's not Chinese. It's bad. Alright. Somebody read me the next document. Okay, early 9th century. No, not 10, which would be when? What years? 800 and something, right? Do you see that it's after Doc 4, where it says 819? It comes after. It's Doc 5, this is Doc 4, this says 819, this says early 9th century. This could be a direct response to Doc 4, right? So this could be a direct response to Doc 4. What's he saying? What's the bottom line here, people? Come on, you read it.
All the related scholars in this are affected.
All the what?
All of them are like really like wise, like teachers, like people who should be like respected.
Right. So sages are teachers, and that Confucius, Laozi, and Buddha were perfect sages, right? That they are all acceptable. Let's talk about who the author is. right? Right? He's Buddhist. He's a scholar, so he's educated. Who is the Tang imperial household? The family of whom?
The emperor.
The emperor, right? So who is that?
The royal family.
His wives and concubines, right? Like, it's his ladies and their children. So he's favored, the author is favored by the family. What's he trying to get to? Who is he trying to get to?
The emperor.
The emperor, right? Like, he's trying to go through the family to get to the emperor so that what doesn't happen? So that Buddha doesn't get exiled. So that Buddhists themselves don't get exiled. Who would be affected by that if Buddhists get exiled? The dude, Zhang Mi, would be affected by that because then he'd have to leave the palace. Right? The wives that are Buddhists have to leave the palace. So let's look at that. So favored by the imperial household, right? This is the audience. Is the family of the emperor. Wives. So like wives and concubines. So I'm going to just put ladies because I don't want to spell concubines. And at the family, so the women have influence. And the purpose is to persuade emperor to not ban Buddhist. Buddhism's okay. It's all acceptable. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. We can all get along. Sounds like which document? Sounds like 3, right? Where it's like, it's not bad, it's just different. We can all get along. It's all good. Alright, let's read Doc 6 about his word is law. Whatever he says, go. And it's very, very clear that he is pouting and going, these Buddhist monasteries are richer than I am. They're taking my money. They're taking the silk out of the homes of my people. They're taking food off the table. So these Buddhists that are very like, think about it, by being Buddhist, you're being almost self-serving because you're wanting to have like oneness with that world spirit. It's very anti-Confucius in thought. It's very anti-filial in that idea that yourself doesn't matter to the family. Remember filial piety? So it's counter to that Confucius thing, and he's throwing a fit. He's like, I don't like it. It's a threat. It's a threat to the law. It's a threat to the society, and it's a threat to the economy. Right? Like, outshine the imperial palace itself. How dare they? I am the sun. Like, I am the center of China. These people are taking my money. They're taking, it's bad. So it's very xenophobic because it's foreign. And that I want you to know that his empire could be crumbling around him right now because the fall of the Tang dynasty is around 905-ish. Remember the Tang song? And that when the Song come into power, they like shut down the monasteries. They're done. It's over. So he's the start of that fall of the Tang. that allowed Buddhism to be so prevalent in their empire. That is Moore's Law. Let's look at Doc 7 and the picture. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, but we see that it was produced between 907 and 1234. It's a wood sculpture, but it's originally the Chinese goddess of mercy, representing the Indian male Vakshatva, and I can't say the next one, and say it again? It's very nice. And so we see this, and that if we took this away, that it could be confused as a Buddhist statue, because it's very Buddhist in style. What does that show us?
Their mothers.
You're going to say syncretism, right? Like it's a combination of like the two styles. I could go with that, but also that Buddhism is still around even after Emperor Wu's edict, right? After his law was issued, Buddhism still stuck around because this is 100 to 200 years after his edict. So this just proves that Buddhism still existed in China during this time. That's what it proves. So we've taken the document apart. So let's now go through and read the sample essay.